Mike, John, yeah. All right. So we are
Also,
missing
the only panel
Marley.
members
Oh,
that
there's
are
Marley.
the only panel members that are missing from this meeting, from what I could tell, is panel member Campbell and Mayor Peak.
Yep. And Jason may come along here. We'll see in a little bit. So let's call this meeting to order. Joel, would you do a roll call, please, since you've already identified who's here and who's not?
Yes, so John Tilley,
Here.
Scott Dick,
Here.
Mayor Peak, Kevin Urquhart,
Here.
Mike Rachel,
Here.
Marley Melton,
Here.
Melody Crislock,
Here.
Jason Campbell, Susan Schiavone.
Here.
So we have 7 panel members present and then 2 absent, and that is Mayor Peak and Jason Campbell.
Great. Everybody, welcome to a new year. It's mid-afternoon on a Friday. For some of you, it's a 3-day weekend, so let's not belabor. Are there any comments from the public on items not agendized for discussion today?
And so if you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. And I did not see any members of the public with their hands raised, and Mayor Peak just joined us.
Oh, good. Hello, Mayor. All right, so moving to the action items. Moving to action items. The first action item is consider adoption of October 13th, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Take a motion for adoption and a second, and then any comments or changes that you've spotted.
I'll motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments or discussion? Great. Joelle, roll call.
Yes, before we do roll call, do we want to take it out to the public to see if they have comments on item number 1?
Absolutely.
Yes, so if you have any comments on item number 1, please raise your hand. There's no hands raised, so I'll return this back to the committee. So I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. John Tilley. John Tilley,
Aye.
Scott Dick,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Kevin Urquhart,
Yes, aye.
Mike Rachel,
Aye.
Marley Melton,
Aye.
Jason Campbell, absent, Melody Crislock,
Yes.
Susan Schiavone.
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 ayes and 1 member absent.
Great. So the next item is reviewing the draft annual report and coming to agreement on any edits and then authorizing release to the board. I think pretty much all of you would have received John Tilley's email from yesterday, questioning the process a little bit. I do want to reiterate that this is the process we've taken since the inception of the committee. We've always asked for what topic areas you want in a draft report. The district has drafted it, sent it back to the committee for editing and approval. So we haven't deviated from that. The timing, many years ago, we kind of moved away from the September submittal to the beginning of the calendar year. Also because as we move forward and we do head into any sunsetting or any other particular aspect that might affect the water supply charge, there will be budget impacts. So we tried to move the discussion of where we're at with the water supply charge and the annual report closer to the budget cycle. So most of the most recent annual reports have been in the February, March timeframe for submittal. So not unusual to move away from committee charge, which was written before the practical operation committees took place, and that's similar in this case. Now, as far as the content goes, there were only, so back in our October 13th committee meeting, I made a request for topic areas. There were only 3 public or 3 committee member comments. 2 of them were by Susan and 1 was by Jason Campbell. And there was no real discussion to the contrary. And so Susan's first comment was the importance of dealing with the mechanics bank loan. And I may have stated that topic area in the first part of the draft annual report, where I highlighted the district board's policy about paying the mechanics bank loan first, the reimbursement of borrowed funds, internally borrowed funds for water supply second, and then sunset third. But that's where that first item came from. Then Jason Campbell spoke up at the October 13th meeting and said, well, aren't we still working on water supply projects, and aren't you approving Pure Water Monterey expansion? So won't that water supply charge be hanging out there longer than we think? It might not be ready for sunset. And then Susan came back with a third comment, her second comment, which was expressing her concerns about the costs of Measure J. And then there was some discussion about the walkaway costs of Measure J. And I know that, this group has in the past been in disagreement with each other over whether water supply charge funds can be used for Measure J. But the point here, or the addition to the draft annual report, was that the sentiment between Jason and Susan was, hey, don't sunset too soon and put the district at risk financially. And that's where that bullet point came from. But that being said, this ultimately has to be your document. And if you've got substantive edits, we're willing to take them and make some modifications. And if need be, we can send it around, and without replying all, I can take additional comments and so forth and try to get to something that works in the next week or so. So with that, I open it up to discussion before we go to action.
I'm comfortable with my comments in the past. If John feels he needs to bring up some discussion around this, I guess we can hear that if he's got something he wants to talk about.
John, did you want to elaborate at all on your email? Or, I know in the past we haven't submitted, like the Supreme Court, where we've got the minority opinion. But that would not preclude any member of this committee from supplying their own email or write-up or letter to the board. In the past, where we've had kind of a split committee, we've said things like, well, the majority agrees this, but it's there's significant disagreement, or there's disagreement. I'm not sure we're at that same point. I think we've got a little bit bigger majority of the board who feels a certain way, given the current makeup. But nevertheless, I did the best I could with the information you gave me. And if you have edits, or if you want, 3 more days of next week to look things over and try to get to a better submittal to the board, we've got until, Joelle, when do we have to submit board packet stuff? Is that Wednesday of next week?
So yes, that's correct. Wednesday of next week.
Yeah. So we could certainly, do some editing through Tuesday, if you guys want.
Is it okay if I make a comment?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in discussion before trying to figure out what action we're going to take.
Okay, first I have a question. Do you, I've produced, between 15 and 20 annual reports in my professional career, and I realize that public agencies, and this is just a subcommittee, so this isn't a very big annual report, but I did call around just to make sure I was current, and everyone I talked to who still produces any kind of report annually said that they do have a financial section. And I think it would be helpful to include the financial section for the water supply charge, if it's just similar to what you've attached to the agenda. So is that something you would consider doing? And that's my question. And then I have another comment after that.
Yeah, so I think on that one, I just looked to the consensus of the committee. If you would like to include, something along the lines of Suresh's report. And Marley, I'm not sure which one you're looking at. I'm assuming it was either Exhibit 3B or 3A doesn't have that much information in it. So are you looking at 3B?
All right, at the moment, I don't have it up on my screen, but
it was the one that was in the packet,
yeah, yes.
the more detailed one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my comment is, I think this is a chance to tell a really positive story. And the text, I think, could be a little more informative about how the funds are being used. Because when I saw the detail on all that is being done with the funds or how they're being used, I thought, gee, so that's what this little charge is on my bill, a medium-sized charge. And I'm glad I paid that. And I think it would be really nice to at least have your public document have another couple paragraphs that would explain the financial detail that shows how the money's used. And I'd be happy to volunteer to help write that if everybody's slammed with work and that the last thing you need is writing an additional couple paragraphs. But that's my comment. I think you have a great story to tell about the wise use of the funds.
So any comment on Marley's two concepts, including financial data? Kind of, I think that Suresh's is probably 3/4 of the year. Hey, Suresh.
It's through
Yeah,
the first,
okay.
through the first quarter. It's through September
First quarter.
30th, but the audited numbers can be definitely published, and we can also have the simpler format that we produced last meeting. We can use that format.
Yeah, I think that the 2020 through 2021, that's basically the full year of audited numbers. So the far column to the right. So that's probably the most meaningful. That's a full year. Yep. And then, a little narrative on how the funds are being used. I'd be happy to draft a paragraph or two, share it with Marley, let her massage it and bring it back in. So, I just look to the consensus of the group.
I don't have a problem with any of that. That's fine with me.
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay, any objections? All right, so we'll do those two things. And Marley, I'll send you something over the weekend that you can then take a crack at.
Well, thanks so much. I'm not asking for a fancy cover or anything. I just thought it could be a little more complete, and then I could share it with all my friends and say, look, this is a good thing.
Yeah, and to your point, this is not a true annual report, with the glossy 4-color printing, and not a ton to say, but I think both of your suggestions are pretty good. So any other discussion regarding the text? Anybody want a second bite at the apple to do any editing that they want to send me over the weekend or through Monday? I'd be happy to.
Dave, yeah, thanks for making that offer. I certainly would like to take that up. It's great to see Marley have a chance to have her input. I think that the nature of this committee is for collecting inputs and not necessarily as is in the charge, trying to have a majority message, and that's all there is to it. It is about being able to communicate the diverse views that exist on this board, including mine. And what I'd really like to just, what I send in is speak to, though, the date of the inception of, and I'll write some stuff out for sure. The date of inception of the water charge versus the 2017 initiation of it, the expectation of sunsetting, the overlap of the water charge and the user fee, and just really some of the things that are reflected in the body of the email I sent in June 5th of 2020 as an alternative and I think a very valid view of the inception and collection of the water supply charge. So if the other members of the committee would allow for that to occur, for some additions to be made, respecting the filing of the packet by Wednesday of next week to get that done in a timely manner for that inclusion to happen.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is any edits that are received, I'd like to receive by Monday noon. So anybody who wants to work on that, I can turn it around to each of you by the end of the day, Monday. And then by the end of the day on Tuesday, I would just need everyone to say, yeah, I'm fine with it. Again, don't reply all at that point, just individually. And so our action item today would be to approve it subject to acceptable edits that you'll get to see and accept by Tuesday. And then it can go to the board. I do think that some of the commentary that John is suggesting about the overlap between the two, we did collect both for a 3-year period, and we're still collecting both. So, that does exist, but we have to, we have to be considerate about not elevating an opinion of maybe a minority of this committee that, or the outstanding lawsuit with the Taxpayers Association, has not been resolved. So I don't think we want to take a position that is currently subject to dispute. So, let's see what you come up with, but it can't be, we've got Marley, Susan, and Melody.
I hear you. I hear you. I know
like-minded.
what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And I get the draft that's presented. I think there's a distinct possibility that various members will not agree 100% with what's in the draft. We might need to accept that there will be, ideas in the draft that we not necessarily as individuals completely agree with.
Yep. So let's see what we get. Does that action work for everybody?
Just a question, are you, does your family or do you have any expectation of taking Monday off?
Yeah,
Holiday.
I'll take a portion of Monday off. Yeah, and so, we'll just have to see where we're at. There'll be a little time on, I'm trying to take Monday off. I'm not showing up here, that's for sure. But I've got 3 things on my plate that need attention this weekend anyway. I don't want to put any of you in a position, if you're taking a 3-day weekend, take the 3-day weekend. So,
Well, I'll be here.
yeah, we'll try to work with these, with the noon Monday for any edits that you guys have time, and review through the end of the day Tuesday, and then kind of sign off end of the day Tuesday. And if there's conflicting edits or just no agreement, then I'll do my best at splitting the baby in 2, and I'll save everybody's comments if there's a question later, and we can save see the red line version. So
can I understand what we're doing, that you will collect up comments and then get another draft back to us to review with those additional comments from other committee members so that we have a chance to look at those And if we want to
Exactly.
respond to that, we have an opportunity to do so.
Right, and then if I
Okay.
have a majority of approvals by the end of the day Tuesday, or even, the morning of Wednesday, then that version will be moved forward to the board for their review at their meeting in January.
Okay.
And so that was a summary of a motion I'd like to hear and a second.
Well,
And
hang on, Dave. I just would like to say if there's going to be a dissenting opinion here and it's a minority of one, I think that has to be stated that it's
right, and we really
not
don't
just a
want
minority, but a
Yeah, we don't-
minority of one.
and we really don't want to do that. What we've tried to do in the past is consensus, or identify that while there is consensus, there's disagreement. But if it's a singular opposing view, then it's best put in a separate email as the dissenting member or two dissenting members, the undersigned herein, but let's see what we can get that everybody can work with or a majority can work with. And
Dave, I can work with John on that. So John,
Yeah.
just let me know.
And I have one other comment. Is it clear in there, I read it this morning and now I don't remember because I read some other things too. Is it clear in there that the both the user fee and the water charge now being charged are legal? And that because if that's legal as far as I understand it. So I would like to see something in there that says we understand that this is legal, and we would like to see the district have the flexibility to use these funds if they need to for Measure J. Was there something to that effect in there already?
there is not. And, it does say the panel recognizes there's disagreement over whether it can be used for Measure J. I guess, there's two challenges here. One is we do have an outside opinion that says it can be used for Measure J. And a lot of folks say, yeah, but that's not consistent with what the intent of the people were back in 2012, et cetera, et cetera. The other issue is whether the dual collection, which continues to this day, is acceptable under the ordinance itself. And that's really the basis of the taxpayers' lawsuit. And that one is presently unresolved, although, we filed our demurrer and motion to strike, and, that's being reviewed right now. I think we've got we'll probably see something in the next 3 months, 2 to 3 months. So I don't think we can say anything as to whether it is or isn't. We know our opinion, our attorney's opinion, but the courts will have to weigh in on that one, the dual collection issue.
I think most of the, if we are, as members are supposed to be somewhat representing the ratepayers and public, I think many members of the public would think that the water supply charge should be used for water supply related, that is more directly related to actual physical water supplies. But there are a majority of people voted for Measure J, so some flexibility would be understandable.
Well, maybe I'll draft a sentence or two about flexibility for using it for Measure J if there's nothing in there.
Yep.
Could there be some sort of communique involved in here from your financial officer, Suresh, stating some of the reason? I mean, I know you've put it in here somewhat, but there were some good fiscal financial reasons for keeping this fee in place for future reference in terms of both paying down a cheaper loan rather than paying it off quickly, keeping cheaper money in a situation, and financially, would it be beneficial to hold both of these fees as you go into the future and what you're paying for? You've mentioned it, but if there could be some sort of, I don't know, some kind of fiscal comment from from the fiscal officer. If that makes any sense. Be nice to have that. And I'm not sure, I know Suresh is going to be doing a report, but whether Cal-Am is still under collecting the water fee or not, and where we stand with that in terms of the income coming in.
Yeah, the trend on the user fee is actually higher than what we've been budgeted. And Dave, just a thought that on the financial aspect of it, what we can also do is basically show the projects that are being earmarked for future years that will basically tie up the user fee and the water supply charge. Because remember, when we talk about the user fee, not all of the user fee is allocated towards the water supply charge fund. It's only 1.2% of the collection. The rest goes to the mitigation and conservation fund. So, maybe we can just clarify that in the annual report as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, and that the crux of the issue about double collection is once the user fee revenues outstrip the environmental mitigation and conservation needs and some set aside for unfunded pension liabilities and post-retirement benefits and so forth, it will produce a surplus, and it's that surplus that we need to target towards reducing the water supply charge. Right now, the surplus, if there is any, is used to subsidize water supply projects because the water supply charge hasn't been enough. On both sides of the equation, on the user fee, we are identifying, we're hitting that point now where there is going to be some crossover. We're going to have extra revenue. So we kind of first take those and subsidize the water supply projects. But as we hit a point where we don't even need to subsidize anymore, either we're done building projects or we're done repaying other funds have been borrowed to do those projects, that's when you can sunset. So I agree that some conversation about that needs to be had. The other thing that's going on is we're doing, and it'll take a long time, but during the course of this year, we're auditing the parcels that receive the water supply charge on their bill as a fee. And we're trying to identify parcels that have been missed for a number of years. So that would actually result in an increase in collections on the water supply charge, which would be good while we're still building things. But anyway, that's a process that's taking place. We've had to give up a few points of water supply charge. I don't know if you know this, but apparently the U.S. Postal Service cut some deal that, a third party will build a post office and then the Postal Service will come in and run it and they'll use it. But in the deal with the federal government, they managed to get a property tax holiday out of it. So we've had to, and this is kind of old news, several years ago, but we had to cease collecting the water supply charge from certain of those kind of facilities. And then of course we have the federal government weighs in every once in a while saying, hey, we're exempt from your local water supply charge. And we have to say, no, you're not, and so forth. So collections have been pretty constant, but we are finding that we've missed a few properties and we've, had a few payers that have taken some motivation to actually pay. So work on that. Joel, do you want to take this out to the public, or John, you have a comment? Yeah.
Well, one thing I'm seeing is that there's no mention of the lawsuit in the annual report from the 152 committee. Is it relevant to our committee that we would take notice that the lawsuit exists?
Any nods or shaking of the heads? Yeah, Mayor?
I think we'll let our legal counsel weigh in on that question. I don't think it comes under the purview of this oversight panel personally, but I defer to Mr. Laredo.
You can certainly recognize it. Obviously, it's in your agenda for review. But in terms of making any substantive comment about it, until the court weighs in, it's just an external fact of which you're aware.
Seems pertinent, but
Anybody else want to include it
Oh,
in the annual report, just recognition of it?
Kevin?
No,
See, you
I
have
would-
Your hand raised.
Yeah, I raise it. No, I would leave it out unless we were formally asked by the board to review it. I agree. It's just, it's informational at this point and it's not settled. And we haven't been asked to formally review it, so I wouldn't include it in the report.
Okay, I see no other hands raised. Joel, take it out to public comment.
Yeah, so if you would like to make public comment on item number 2, please raise your hand. Dave, I do not see anybody with their hands raised.
Great. So I would be looking for a motion somewhat different than, well, what we've already talked about, which is keep this item open to the committee for comments through Monday at noon. Make sure the committee has an opportunity to review a proposed revision. Kevin, you've become Spider-Man. You're like upside down, clinging to the and that's
pretty
subject to all committee members having an opportunity to review revisions and sign off on them by Tuesday, close of business, that we would then make a recommendation to the full board.
so moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, Joel?
That was a motion by John Tilley and then seconded by Schiavone, correct?
Correct.
Panel member Tilley,
Aye.
panel member Dick,
Aye.
Mayor Pete,
aye.
Kevin Urquhart,
Aye.
Mike Rachel,
Aye.
Molly Melton,
Yes.
My Lady Chrislock,
Yes.
Jason Campbell, Susan Schiavone.
Aye.
The motion passes with 8 ayes and 1 member absent.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to discussion items. Item 3 is review of revenue and expenditures. As we've already talked about, we have first quarter of the fiscal year results, but we do have the audited actuals. So Suresh, I'll turn this over to you.
Yeah, so Exhibit 3A, fairly simple. Basically, what we're showing here is the water supply charge receipt collection from the Monterey County Assessor's Office. And as you can see, we did budget $3.4 million as opposed to 3.3, which was the 2021 fiscal year, because we were dealing with COVID at that point. We didn't know what the collection was going to be, under collection or over collection. But as you can see, the audited actuals, the very last column on the right-hand side, the actual collections came in a little over $3.4 million. So
If we can, let's circle back around to Sorry, my bad.
oops. So basically, we budgeted again 3.4. The collections through through September 30th is 0. The first series of collections is going to be received in December. So it was received in December. We just haven't closed the financials for the period ending December 31st. So once we do that, the next report will show you results through December 31st. Exhibit 3B is going into the detailed version of the water supply charge availability analysis. So basically looking at the water supply charge cost center revenues and also the expenses. And again, the 2 highlighted columns are the ones that we are reporting on. The 2020-2021 actuals, audited actuals, the board did receive the actual audited financial statements in December, and it is posted on our website should anyone feel to read it. It's available under the financial page of the district. So we are on the unaudited actuals through September 30th. We are showing we have received so far through September $2.3 million in collections. You'll see water supply charge 0 and the user fee zero, as well as the property tax. I mean, I'm sorry, not user fee, but the property tax is zero. And those two, again, as I mentioned, the first collection came in December. So that's going to get updated on the next quarterly financials. On the expenses side, a little more, $3.4 million. So through the first 3 months, we have overexpended ourselves, $1.1 million for that cost center. But that's always typically the pattern, because for the first 6 months, we continue to spend money, pay salaries, do projects, but the bulk of the water supply charge and user fee and the property tax revenues don't get collected until we are in the 6th month of the fiscal year. So that's a normal pattern for us to kind of like overspend ourselves for the first 6 months, and then the revenue gets caught up. And then on the bottom part where the project expenses are, you'll basically see all of the project lines. The biggest ticket items there are the operating reserve on the Pure Water Monterey project. We did bank some money on the operations, on the operating reserve. And then, of course, the water purchase cost, where we basically buy the water from Pure Water Monterey and sell it to Cal-Am. So on the revenue side, you'll see a offset to the water purchase cost. And then some of the other small ticket items, some reimbursement projects, and some minor project-related expenses. So all in all, that's the numbers that we are reporting on.
And you may recall that there was a request from you all to simplify and just look at the water supply charge relative to water supply expenditures. We did that last month, or last meeting rather, on an annual basis, and we included the unaudited 2021. I think we could update that with the audited, but it only works well on an annual basis for the reasons Suresh just pointed out about the chunky nature of collection. So if we were to do it on a, consistent with just the first quarter reporting of the year, there'd be no revenues, because those revenues didn't come in until December. And then the second chunk of revenues don't really come in until April. So we didn't update that more simplified chart, because partial year numbers don't tell much of a story. But I'm thinking that, Suresh, when we move forward in any of these meetings, we should include that simplified chart at least through the last full fiscal year, just so people can see it, because it's it's since the inception of the charge kind of thing. So just something to think about for our packet next time, Suresh, is include that water supply charge report in just the water supply fund.
Yeah, we'll make that a standing exhibit. So we'll make that as exhibit C.
Great. And could you send me the last version of it, and I'll go ahead and update the audited numbers and slip them in there, or if you can put the audited numbers in there. Then to Marley's point of including some of the financials, I'll include that chart, and then the your exhibit 3B. I may simplify your exhibit 3B to only include last full fiscal year instead of these quarterly numbers, but those would be the two things I'd probably slip in there.
Will do.
Okay, thanks. Any questions or comments from the committee on Suresh's presentation?
Suresh, the operating reserve you speak of, is that a cash reserve, or is that the value of the water that's in the ground that was built up?
That's the water reserve in the ground.
Okay. Cool. And that actually is a true asset. That is something that gets reimbursed when that gets drawn down by Cal-Am.
When it gets sold to Cal-Am, it'll basically be sold at the then going water rate, and then we'll have to replenish it again. So.
Yeah, and we may start using that operating reserve to actually create a surplus. And this is something Suresh and I haven't really had detailed discussions about, but when and if Marina Coast comes online to use its portion of the capacity of the plant, they're going to want to irrigate. It's going to be mostly summer water, and Cal-Am wants to use Pure Water Monterey water more in the summer in order to not stress the river during the summer. And so we've got these competing needs for summer water. And the way to kind of alleviate some of that competition is to bank some water from the beginning of the year, the wetter periods, use that to serve Cal-Am in the period that Marina Coast needs irrigation water. And so that would be something that we would do internally with reserves where we pay for the water like in a January, February timeframe, and then we wouldn't get paid for that water until a July, August timeframe. So we may start using the operating reserve as a running buffer for some of those peaks and valleys. Mayor, you've got a hand up.
Thank you. And thank you for the simplified accounting summary. And I agree, it should be given to us every quarter. And the one way to handle it is just a text notation that the revenues come in at 2 times a year with property taxes. So you will be in arrears and then you'll catch up later. So that's common for all cities, agencies with property tax revenue.
Yeah, and I thought of another way to deal with it, because the annual total has been very consistent, roughly 3.4 million plus or minus. Instead of showing a zero like in the first quarter, we could just take a 1/4 of 3.4 million as an estimate and just footnote it as an allocation of estimated receipts for that quarter or for that half a year and so forth, because everything else will be real expenditures, which are known invoices and paid. And so we could use an estimated revenue so that everything kind of works. I don't know how you feel about that one, Mayor, but that would work.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, Dave, if we do that, that's not going to tie to my financial statements, my financial system, because right now we get the numbers directly from our financial statements.
Right. And so all we would do is we would populate it from Tyler and then take that one location in, because you move it to a spreadsheet, and then just change the spreadsheet number to a quarterly estimate of allocable water supply charge. And leave it at that. That's something we can work on. But I do think, because you guys asked for a simplified chart, and I actually like it because it does show where we've had shortfalls of water supply charge to pay for things. So actually, you can actually see whether it's sufficient or insufficient. I think we should have that in every meeting packet, and we'll just try to find a way to make it meaningful. To the mayor's point that, we ought to be able to do that. So you have something else, Mayor? Yeah.
Yes, got 2 other points. One is, would love to see the district's budget online. I can't see the big
I'm sorry, would you repeat that a little louder?
Yeah, we're getting feedback, but
sorry.
yeah, no.
Sorry, I'm just laughing.
The budget absolutely should be online. That's transparency with a big T.
Yeah, I noticed that Suresh put a cup up to his mouth to cover his face when you mentioned that, because it's we completely agree. It's been a thorn in our side. It will get posted.
Okay,
Right.
Do you have it? I'm getting feedback. Somebody's mic and yeah. Do you have it? The budget as a PDF?
Yeah, we can get it to you. It's also available with the June board meetings and also the the March board meetings. So the budget packets are there. It's just that the PDF has not been compiled as one piece, but the PDF on the together with the agenda is available.
Right.
Well,
So we totally get it. We're going to do it.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And my last point, I brought this up before. I still think it's a really good idea. It's an accounting system called enterprise funding or enterprise funds. And when the debate was going on about the cost of water from various sources, the river, Pure Water Monterey, DSAL, et cetera, public is bombarded with the costs for each of these mechanisms, but it's extremely difficult to sort that out from our accounting. And I realize that's not a simple ask, that it would be a major overhaul of your accounting, but local governments do that all the time. So I ask you to please consider it, or this board to consider recommending it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Marley?
I was just going to ask that on the financial report, that where an asset is valued in dollars but not held in dollars, that it be clarified so that you would say value of water reserve, value of water in reserve, for example.
Because you can't buy a sandwich with water in the ground, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Understood.
Is that a cost accounting figure, by the way, or is that a revenue, expected revenue figure?
That's cost.
Cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the worst asset you ever want to have. It's an asset that has value that if you expend the value, you only have to replace it with a higher value. And so, you know, we're carrying an asset that we never want to use. But it's there, it's a safety net. It's a big insurance policy. Okay, any members of the public have comment or discussion they'd like to share on this item?
I do not see anybody with the hand raised.
Great. Okay, the next item under discussion is the district response to the MPTA lawsuit. No real need for discussion. We just included it here for your own edification. Again, to reiterate, you bear no liability for any of this, but it's important that you understand it's going on. And so it's there for your reading pleasure. I summarized a few of the district's positions in the staff note. But if you have any questions on what you've seen, you know, we can discuss that, or love to take it right now. Dave Laredo can answer the more.
And I just wanted to give one additional point that was not in your packet, is that the hearing on the demur has been extended by the direction of the court. It is now calendared for Friday, the 18th of February. It had been originally set in December. The court rescheduled that to January, and now it's set for April, all related to the court's workload and the amount of time they believe is needed for this. It's at 8:30 in Department 14 on Friday, the 18th.
Of February or April?
Well, it's for February 18th.
Dave, would there be a link? Would Judge Anderson allow Zoom as well as in person?
There is, you can check on it changes from time to time. The court website does have the Zoom information. Typically, it's the parties and the participants that do that, but there are call-in numbers as well.
Thank you.
Dave, you're on mute.
Yep. If you guys are interested, between Joelle and myself, we'll try to remember to give you a heads up when that information comes out. if you want to listen in.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
John?
Yes, please.
In reviewing the minutes from the October meeting, there's no mention made of the closed session, which covered this. I was asked out of that closed session. Should that closed session be referenced in the minutes since it occurred? And at some point, either here or maybe in those minutes, please note that I was not involved in the closed session.
Dave, is that something we should put in the regular meeting minutes that we adjourned to closed session?
Yes, it would be appropriate, and also the attendees at the closed session and those that were not in attendance would be appropriate as well.
Great.
Thank you,
Could
Dave.
you all make a note? With that,
So, Dave, do we need to do a reconsideration of item number 1?
I don't know that you need to reconsider this. This is actually a separate part of the meeting, so I think you can take that as direction to bring that back for approval at the next, once the committee has actually seen this.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to get bogged down in water gossip today, but if you've got any particular questions, I'd be happy to field them under item 5. Otherwise, we can call it a day.
You've already done the water update?
Pardon?
You've already done the water supply project update?
No, I was saying I don't really feel like getting to it.
Oh, come on, Dave.
3-day weekend, come on.
No, I mean, we're basically in the same place. We have an open application, or CalAm has opened an application for a water purchase agreement on pure water expansion. That will be dealt with under phase 1. Phase 2 revisits the need and sizing and timing for a desal plant. So that is still on the table with the Public Utilities Commission. There's been no progress that we can see in developing responses to the Coastal Commission to bring their application back. There's still some outstanding issues related to outfall agreement and a variety of things. So we're just kind of working our way through the Pure Water Monterey expansion issues. We have authorized cost sharing, so pre-construction monies can be spent. Monterey One Water and ourselves had a conversation last week, and it's clear that we would not begin to build the project until the water purchase agreement is either agreed upon or dead. So we capped the exposure at just pre-construction environmental permitting and bid documents. In the meantime, for the next 30 months, we're working hard on making sure that there's sufficient water supply to get through, as of January 1, a week ago or 2 weeks ago at this point, CalAm is down to their legal limit, which has 2 interesting repercussions. One is it means we're very thin in terms of available water. But looking at the projections for the next 2 years, we pretty much believe that we're good. We have a slightly higher effective diversion limit for this water year, but beginning next water year, so October 1, we'll be at the legal limits for everything. But we have some surplus. We've got 1,200 acre-feet banked. Actually, at this point now, we've got 1,271 acre-feet banked. We're hopeful for some February, March, April rains, which will allow us to increase that. Rain means that CalAm has a separate water rate called Table 13 that they can also apply. So this particular, both calendar year and water year, don't look to be much of an issue. And that means that the surplus that we're currently sitting on, we get to carry forward to next calendar year or water year. So I think we'll be in pretty good stead. Even at this point, if there's no more rain, but we're kind of hoping there will be some rain. So I think we have the short-term issue, we've got the long-term issue. We need an absolute long-term permanent water supply, which will deal with a lot of the problems. But the interesting thing I wanted to point out is, we still have this housing, water for housing initiative in front of the state. And there's been some progress made recently with the Housing and Community Development Department. And they are now kind of looking at having a peer-to-peer conversation with the State Water Board. And the interesting thing when you look at it is the Cal-Am is down to its legal right on the river, roughly 3,376 acre feet. And all of that water is spoken for. It's already fully utilized in the demand numbers. And so when you look at condition 2 of the cease and desist order, which is kind of the prohibition on growth, it was all written geared towards not taking any more water from the river for increases in use of water. Well, if you're down to your legal limit and you've agreed to live within your means, meaning you're not going to increase your withdrawals beyond the legal limit, and that legal limit is already spoken for in existing demand, then it means any other increase in use in the system isn't coming from the river. It's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from Seaside Groundwater Basin, it's coming from Sand City Desal, it's coming from Pure Water Monterey. We have shown that we can run Pure Water Monterey in excess of the 3,500 acre feet that's promised to Cal-Am, so we can actually deliver Cal-Am more. And so we are going to get into this position where until the permanent water supply is added to the system, we're going to be playing a little game of where's the water coming from, because I do believe that we can make commitments for some housing in the next 2.5 years that will not tap the river, so to speak. And so we're hoping we can elevate that discussion with the State Water Board, with the help of the Housing and Community Development folks. Otherwise, we're sitting around for 3 years and no jurisdiction is making any progress on their RHNA numbers, their Regional Housing Needs Assessment numbers, which are only getting higher as a result of, I think we're into the 5th cycle, maybe the 6th cycle, I can't keep track. But, the pressure's on to build housing, and the city managers and city councils of a few of our jurisdictions don't want to wait around for a permanent water supply to make those commitments. So we'll see what breaks there. But anyway, that's about all I have. Any other questions, specific questions I can answer for you?
I just have a comment, Dave. So yeah, that for years and years, everyone's been screaming about January 1st, 2022, and how we were all going to be in such terrible shape and horror with, the sky would fall. Of course, Cal-Am never said a word about it. We've passed that now and everything's okay. Would the Water Management District consider doing an op-ed or something to try to educate the public on what you just said?
Yeah, I suppose we could. I'd want to consult with Chris, because I don't think it's as okay as, we're on, I said we're on an edge, it's thin, but we do have more than enough. And we just went through operating scenarios of Pure Water Monterey with Monterey One Water this morning. And we've got other tools in the toolbox to produce more water. And so we are okay, but it's not a big sigh of relief okay. It's if we don't get a new permanent water supply in 36 months, we could be in a position where we're starting to deplete our buffer and not rebuild it. We don't have anything to rebuild it with. And so that's the issue. But yeah, I'd consider that.
My point is really that this is a great success on your part and Monterey One's part, and it should be noted. We're not taking water from the river illegally. That should be noted. in all caps, and who's responsible. Not Cal-Am, they're not responsible for the success.
We're all partners.
Yeah.
Why is there so much of a delay in signing the water purchase agreement again?
Well, so there's a fundamental difference of opinion between the company and ourselves, and frankly, the Public Advocate's Office and others. The Public Utilities Commission pretty much has signaled to all investor-owned utilities that if you've got a, if you're going to increase your water purchase agreement or enter in a new purchase water agreement, these all go into balancing accounts. And you're going to get your increase due to inflation and what have you. So the advice we received from the PUC was, you don't really even need to come back to us with a full-blown application. Cal-Am said, no, we view this more as a project. And we're like, well, it's an expansion of an existing project. And there's actual language in the already approved water purchase agreement that the company water is 3,500 acre feet a year or some other amount as agreed to by the parties. So we tried all that to say, look, you don't need to go to the commission in a full-fledged application, but they said, yeah, we do need permission. It's a new project, a new water purchase agreement, or amended and restated water purchase agreement. We would have preferred to have it come out of our complaint. And in that situation, it would just be us and Cal-Am. And now by doing a full application, it's us, Cal-Am, the Business Coalition, Land Watch, Marina Coast Water District, Monterey One Water, and so forth. So you get more parties. You're going to end up hearing from the central or the Salinas Valley growers, and it becomes much more of a storytelling event. And it's not very expedient. But that's what we're stuck with.
And this could take up to a year to sign this simple water purchase agreement.
Yep. We're hoping for no more than 6 months, but yeah.
And I mean, does the Business Coalition, and I wonder why they want this delayed like this. They want the water, but they're.
Oh, I don't think anybody wants the delay. They just want clarity. I think that there's a number of interests who want more discussion about desal, how big, when, and let's keep it alive. And,
Isn't that separate from the water purchase agreement though? Isn't that the phase?
It's,
So why
they're both
phase
part of
one?
the same application, but there's a phase 1 and a phase 2.
Why does phase 1 have to take a whole year? This is just outrageous.
Well, it may not. It may be 6 months. I think, the problem is just getting started takes time. So the application got filed, motions become interveners, all happen. And then you have to have a pre-hearing conference. Then you have to have a scoping session. And so we're going to end up burning 3 months just to get to testimony. And then you've got rebuttals and things like that. So it is possible that, if we can set an expedited schedule, that'll be part of the pre-hearing conference discussion. And then they'll issue a scoping memo. And if they hear us and we all agree to be good actors and expedite things, maybe they'll give us a schedule that concludes in 6 months, meaning, 3 months from next month when we get a pre-hearing conference. So we'll see. Kevin, you've got your hand up. And that's perfect because I wanted to ask you a question. Now, there's a few of our committee members who are retired and, have all adjusted their lives to this. But what's it like to go on retirement during shelter in place and a pandemic? You don't get to just go fly off everywhere and, do everything. Has it been kind of a burden?
It's been mixed. Yeah, you can't do everything you want to do. I did a few things that I traveled a little bit anyway, but not radically. No air flights, that kind of thing. And I have a new granddaughter, so that's actually where I am today in San Francisco, playing childcare grandpa and taking a break for the meeting here. So That's good. And that's also why the screen flipped. There's a Labradoodle in the place that I only have moderate control over, and it sent my tablet launching. And then I saw myself hanging from the ceiling. You're right. Spider-Man was a good approach.
Yeah.
The reason I had my hand up was just an informational thing. If Joel or Suresh could send me the links, I assume they're probably on the district's webpage, to the background information you talked about, the external legal opinion that the Measure J fees and stuff could go on. That all, of course, occurred before I joined the committee. So it'd be good for me to go back and review and read all that. And I'm not asking them to spend time to gather it up, but if they just send me a list of links, because I'm sure they exist.
Yeah, on that one, it's just one simple memo, and I'll get that to you because I know where it sits. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was any board meeting minutes or anything related to it that I should read. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Dave, I just had a quick question on the water purchase process. Is there an opportunity for the public to make any comments during that time to encourage expedition of that process?
Yeah, so just yesterday, Land Watch filed for intervener status. I heard somebody else may file. So there will be those folks with formal ability to provide testimony and so forth. Dave Laredo, what's the opportunity of the public to just weigh in, like at a pre-hearing conference or whatever?
Well, we don't know whether there'll be any public hearings yet. That will be made clear at the pre-hearing conference. Certainly, there's an opportunity for letters to be sent to the Public Advocate's Office, typically correspondence is not sent directly to the ALJ, but we'll find out in 2 weeks whether or not there will be a public testimony allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to write to the Public Advocate's Office and request an expedited process? And if so, do we need to know some numbers and all the magic words that will get it to the right place?
I'll make certain that Joel has the Public Advocate's Office and have him circulate that to you by address. The words you choose to use, that's your choice as an individual. I don't believe the committee is actually taking action. So, but I think you can use plain language and they will certainly understand as long as you refer to the preceding number, and I'll get that to Joel.
Okay, that's what I meant. I wasn't meaning that there was particular wording. I just meant all the addresses and docket numbers, etc.
There's only one address that you need, and we'll get that.
All right, John Tilley.
Oh boy, now I just get my mind. Drawing a blank.
I do it all the time. Well, I'll share two things I've learned. This is my new N95 mask. And so I got so used to taking the basic surgical mask and just popping them on, right? So I pop it on. I was walking around and I'm like, what's wrong with my ears? So I got this new thing where I got to be really, I got to really kind of get it in there. And then if I've worn it for like an hour, I'm like, why does the back of my ear hurt? These things are just tighter than the other ones. So I've got that. And then I found I'm a creature of habit. I have a clock on my wall over here that I glance at. It hasn't worked for 4 months. I still find myself glancing at it. So earlier today, I just took it off the wall. I threw it away. It's dead. It's not the battery, it's the clock. 3 times during this meeting to check the time, I've looked up at a blank wall. I'm like, humans, we do program ourselves. We just do things that
Yes, we do.
are inexplicable. So
I ordered some really kind of soft, stretchy elastic, and I've taken to tying the 2 loops together so that I can put it around the back of my head, and it doesn't hurt the back of my ears that way. And you can adjust the tightness to make it a good seal.
good advice.
I recommend that.
All right, everybody.
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is when the email I sent last night, that if you look on it, this was an email I sent back in June of 2020.
Yeah.
And, if it's, I thought I spent a lot of time on it at one point, looking back at the origination of the water supply charge. If you want to become familiar with the origin of it, that's a pretty decent email to hit links and see what's there. It's one man's view, but it's really just taken directly from the website of the water district. Thank you.
Hey,
Awesome.
Dave,
Yeah, hey, Scott.
hey, there's a book that you could read since we're wrapping this up called Predictably Irrational. And it's about humans and we're 90% so unconscious. And there's a chapter in there called Free Isn't Free and how much it costs us. So to go pursue free things. So just, it's one of those, I can't sleep. I got to read this book. It's hilarious.
Great. Predictably irrational. I got it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Mayor,
Thanks, all.
we determined that if you waited another 45 minutes, because we were calculating, you had about an hour for every yes vote. And if you'd gone another 45 minutes, it might have been unanimous.
Mhm.
But you guys, I really admire the effort you put into your special meeting on Wednesday. That's not an easy task. And, that's when you look at, we govern ourselves as people. Sometimes it's not easy, but Pacific Grove really dug their feet in and stayed for the course. So that was impressive. That's it, everybody. Let's have a great weekend and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
In mindfulness.
Thanks.